are you a rewilder as we would understand it?
Almost certainly not. I mean, we invented Restore to work with larger farms and estates, most of whom have agricultural activities or shooting activities or both, to carry out ecological restoration, so process-led, heavy emphasis on soil, insects, recovering the food chain, red-listed birds. We do the more radical stuff as well. We do beaver reintroductions if the landowner wants, if the landscape is suitable. So we might do some of the stuff that's referred to as rewilding. I mean, technically rewilding means turning areas above 10,000 acres to pure nature-led processes, which in the UK can only really be achieved in somewhere like the Cairngorms National Park. When you're working in the home counties, somewhere like Southill Estate in Bedfordshire, you're inevitably doing a lot of ecosystem mimicry. You're also doing a huge amount of...
You're going to have to explain a few of these terms.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Or Paul speaks English. He might be able to do it. Actually.
There we go.
Yeah. I'm only just learning this, so it's all new to me.
Okay, what something mimicry? What?
So if you turn back the clock, say 200 years to before we started creating large fields and straight hedgerows and a neater, tidier countryside, we had a lot more scrub, orchards, fallow areas, less chemical use, all of these things that we know are intrinsically good for nature, good for food, and good for shooting as well. And basically what we're trying to do is to recreate that. But when you're doing it, especially in southern England, it's quite an active process. So you need a lot of boots on the ground, you need a lot of skilled people like Paul involved. And if we just left Southill, if we just abandoned it rather than managing it, it probably wouldn't create complex biodiversity outcomes. It would just all go to fallow grassland, then it would all go to scrub. So a lot of what we're doing is creating ponds, blocking drainage ditches, reintroducing grazing animals, and all of these are active interventions, active processes. So probably when people think about the word rewilding, particularly maybe here at the Game Fair, they think about land abandonment. And when I think about it, I think about a very active process of just putting back a heck of a lot more nature than there was on that farm or estate before we get involved. So that's what we do on the day-to-day.
All right. Well, look, Paul, you work with Benedict, and we've just seen a shot of a lynx on the screen. Are you releasing lynx in Suffolk? Is that how it works?
Unfortunately not.
Unfortunately not.
Well, the lynx thing is never going to work in Bedfordshire, and we all
Bedfordshire, sorry,
we all accept that.
Okay.
Somewhere else maybe, but no. I'd love to see a lynx somewhere in the country. It'd be great to walk somewhere knowing there's a lynx, but not in Bedfordshire.
Now, you used to be what we would call a traditional keeper, and I must say what Benedict has just described sounds to me a lot like what we call a shoot. Are there differences?
I mean, my background, so I've been at Southill 30 years, say. So starting off fairly conventional, 30 days a year, 200 to 300 bird days. We went wild 20 years ago, so we haven't released a bird for 20 years. So the concept of what we're doing now is very, very, it's almost the same as before. It's just a different name, and that, to me, is great.
So from a shooting point of view, how many days shooting do you produce now?
We shoot 10 days a year now. So the family have 5, we sell a few, and it's all walked up days, so there's nothing driven. So it's all small scale. That's what the boss likes, and I think that possibly is the future.
A driven shoot day is a bit of a product, isn't it? And there are definitely going to be people in this room who think, big bag days will be the death of shooting and things like that. Although I must say, I don't think the antis think that. I don't think they care about big bag days.
No, bag size, does it matter? I think we're happy that we have a walk, we shoot maybe 10, maybe 50, a species day, maybe 5 species, maybe 15 species. It's not about numbers. I've worked on places where we've had big days, very big days, and celebrities, big names, helicopters, security. There's a great buzz, I can't deny. Being involved in those days is fantastic, but it's not what we want now, and it's certainly not what my boss wants.
Benedict, do you bear down a bit on the big bag day? Do you think that it is an evil in its in itself, or you, I mean, you seem to me to be presenting a rather more positive message about this is what we would like to do, and getting involved with it if you want.
Yeah, I'm not actually a campaigner, and I certainly wouldn't get very far in the landowning community if I use words like evil. But I think I don't see big bag days as being what's going to happen in the future, regardless of whether I would want it to happen or not happen. Because when I speak to most landowners, I'm 37, of 40 and younger, who are de facto the future of shooting and have a big say in the way that gamekeepers, people like Paul, carry out their land management activities. The times change, because times always change, fashions change, numbers are a lot less exciting for people now than landscapes full of different species, full of diversity. There is this some would call it a fashion of rewilding or nature creation on estates. There's a huge amount of money in that now, whether that's through carbon markets, biodiversity net gain, that makes it not just something a very wealthy person wants to do, but something that is ecologically and economically sustainable. So I think if we think fast forwarding 50 years, and we want a future where there are lots of gamekeepers and lots of rural custodians in our landscape, which I certainly do want to see, then I think what we're doing at Southill is really interesting and worth watching. And that's kind of how I'd frame it.
Now, among the things you're doing at Southill is you're still shooting foxes, crows, but you're not getting rid of stoat and weasel. Just give me some more of the nuts and bolts of the management from your point of view.
So if we went to somewhere like Belarus, not that I recommend that, if we went somewhere where the big apex predators, the ones we can probably never have in Bedfordshire, have not been taken away, lynx, wolves, bears, then your density of your mesopredators, so your foxes, and in other countries, badgers, corvids, magpies, carrion crows, is very low. So I see Paul's activities as basically making up for a lot of the lost predators that we don't have. So when we're looking at fragile populations of lapwings and we're potentially looking at curlew reintroduction, we're trying to carry out activities that replicate that sort of predation pressure, which obviously then brings me to deer. The biggest thing that was limiting biodiversity at Southill, grey partridge nesting habitat, food availability, complex scrub, was there were an extraordinary amount of deer, particularly muntjac and Chinese water deer. Well, Paul is the wolf who is doing a wonderful job of predating these deer and leading to a much richer landscape, better hedgerows, more food availability, more cover availability, which of course benefits biodiversity, but also benefits grey partridge, also benefits shooting. So ecosystems are based on a lot of death. If you go to Africa, you'll always see something being horribly torn apart by something else. So we do take a very unsentimental approach to our conservation, because fundamentally we don't have the big predators here in the UK, and that does open up a legitimate role for people to carry out certain activities such as deer management and fox control, in my view.
Paul, we'll come back to you being a wolf in a minute. But, I mean, when you see a stoat, does your heart fill with joy because you think, oh, isn't that wonderful? Isn't that, what a blessing for my
it
sheep.
doesn't. Our estate manager's wife said she saw a litter of stoats the other day, and it's horrifying. But, that is where we are. I think if I look back over 30 years, we used to trap stoats, weasels, rats, and we used to run 600 tunnel traps. And on average, a year we may kill 20 to 30 stoats. So we're not in an area with a lot of stoats, and we hardly had a weasel. So to me, to step back from that it's not the end of the world. It would be nice to run a few tunnel traps, but my job's changed. I haven't got time to commit to that. So corvids, foxes, they're the big ones for me.
Okay.
And also our landscape's changing. So we're not just linear hedgerows and margins anymore. We've got big areas of grass, scrub coming up now. So we're finding partridges particularly are nesting away from these hedges. So I think stoats and weasels are going to be less of a problem.
Okay, so you're prepared to let it go. On the wolf subject, I mean, it is a fairly typical line from the rewilding lot that deer are the great evil of the country. Usually put alongside sheep and gamekeepers, so you're quite lucky there. But I mean, do you agree with Benedict that having cut the deer back massively on the estate, the birds have got more places to go?
Oh, definitely. I mean, but we're not just looking at game; we're looking at birds in general.
Sorry, when I say game, I mean all.
Yeah.
So again, rewilders hate it when I do that, but yeah.
I mean, it's just creating more and more habitat.
Yeah.
And that's the key for us.
And is that really working? I mean, I often hear about this slightly peculiar figure that we've got more deer now than we had since the Norman Conquest, and I think, really, were you there? How do you know? But I mean, is it true to say that getting rid of deer actually makes an obvious and significant difference?
Okay, so 3 years ago, I'd have probably been a bit sceptical because we used to kill a lot of deer and think we were doing a good job, but still didn't have any bramble or any scrub growing. In the last 2 years, you walk across our ground that's been managed as sort of set aside and all these different schemes. It's just been grass. Nothing's grown there. But now we've got acres and acres of young scrub coming through. It's probably knee height now. And I think the boss was walking in a field last week, very proud to say he's found 147 small oak trees in about 3 acres of grass right next to the wood. So yes, it is working.
Yeah, Benedict.
We weren't there in the Norman Conquest, but you only had to look at pictures of Victorian woods, and the two things that are very obvious. One, you can't see a very long way, and we know they were full of nightingales, and they were full of nightingales until the 60s. Nightingales obviously need the really, really dense scrub. And they're also full of flowers. So we have a pretty good pictorial record of our countryside for the last 150 years. And the first thing we're seeing at Southill isn't obviously young trees coming up, although they are coming up. It's flowers, it's nectar, which means pollinators, which means more flycatchers. And the whole system is just being lifted. More cuckoos, more nightingales, more grasshopper warblers, and probably more partridge broods getting away as well, like Paul says. So we're not talking about native densities of red deer and a lovely wood in the highlands. What we're talking about at Southill is vast quantities of muntjac, which are non-native, Chinese water deer, which are non-native, and they don't really compute within our countryside. And they're like, I think of them as walking secateurs. They just take out the basis of the new scrub. You get leggy hedgerows, which, as anyone knows, are no good for partridges at all. So we've seen this, and we believe in demonstration. We can take anyone to come and see it. The problem is the landscape's getting away so quickly, we're actually struggling to produce all the science and the data to keep up with it. But that's one for us to work on.
That's your problem, yeah.
That's my problem, exactly.
If I were a landowner, and there's bound to be a landowner or two sitting in front of, I've seen one in the audience here today, how should I kind of judge your success? Is it literally the ability to walk through a field and go, look at all those lovely oak trees? What are your KPIs? What do you provide for them that make them think this is working for me?
So we baseline 4 key things: biodiversity, bioabundance, and I'll pause on the bioabundance because if one spoke to one's grandfather or grandmother, it is the clouds of butterflies, it is the volume of skylarks that they remember. Not necessarily always that there were more different species, but there was more of everything. And the brief for Mr. Whitbread when I started working for him and with Paul is, I want as much life as you can create me on the estate. But within that, at Restore, we have some pretty tight metrics on abundance, so we'll sample the same things in the same place each year. Structural change, so what Paul's describing, blackthorns and hawthorns, new scrub coming up, woodland coming up where formerly it was just grass, that's structural change. And then, of course, the natural capital sequestered, the carbon sequestered as a result. Soil carbon, woodland carbon, and in future, probably wetland carbon as well.
It's interesting starting the idea of creating a game-rich environment with soil. That seems to be your starting point. So how does that work?
Well, often we'll find that if you've knackered the soil, any farmer or so-called rewilder will tell you you've knackered everything. You've knackered the very basis. If you've knackered the mycorrhizal network, the fungi under the ground, you're going to have trees and plants that are more prone to disease, and the whole system is unsound. Now, in fairness, Southill have done an incredible job of looking after their soils for the last 10 years. They're one of the early pioneers of regenerative farming. So that did mean that we were not coming in at the baseline of 0 at all. It's already a very well-managed estate. But obviously from there you can then begin to build back your complex different, your different flowers. Often in the British countryside, if somewhere's been overgrazed, you'll keep seeing the same couple of species, buttercups and the rest of it. Obviously, the more different flower species you have, the more pollinators, the more different moths, the more different food plants. And then you just begin building upwards. But you're never going to get above about this high off the ground if you don't get on top of your deer numbers, because that's where you start to get your scrub and your nesting birds. Most of the songbirds in this country do best in a kind of scrub grassland landscape, whether that's a nightingale, a cuckoo, a turtle dove. So scrub has been very underestimated as a habitat in the last 30 years, so that's something we're quite keen to kind of turn on its head. And Mr. Whitbread, being very enlightened, obviously now wants as much scrub as he can get, especially in the B&G areas.
Well, you're okay with scrub in the south of England. I've sat with the hilarious Chris Packham and Ruth Tingay at the Bird Fair a few years ago, and they produced this thing called Revive, and they showed me their brochure. And on one side they had a rewilded upland landscape with lots of scrub in it, and on the other side they had a grouse moor, which to me was the obvious place where you find wildlife. And their version looked to me a lot like a fire risk. So, I mean, you are the next generation. You're the next generation. You're the next lot bringing this forward. I suppose one of the reservations about all this is that it's quite theoretical, and that one of the things Paul represents is centuries of game management. I suppose the question wrapped up in that is do you feel you're kind of fitting in with Paul, or do you think it is up to Paul to fit in with you?
Well, the estate employs me, I don't employ the estate, so the answer would be it's up to me to fit in with Paul. But then the best relationships in life tend to be where both parties listen to the other. I've learned a huge amount working with Paul. I hope that Paul's learned something working with me. I'm good at spotting the systems level stuff, like I could see that there were too many deer, but Paul's got an extraordinary knowledge of the land and the estate built over 30 years. How could I ever build that up myself without having been in Paul's position for 30 years? So I think the key thing at Southill for me is it's a partnership. We're actually getting on and doing this, so we don't really have time to be scoring too many theoretical points about each other. We've got a shared goal, we've got different skills, but we do have a lot of overlap. The other thing Paul and I have in common is we've both been very lucky to travel a lot. So Paul's obviously spent a lot of time in Africa, where you have these really amazing, chaotic, biodiverse ecosystems, which we're trying to sort of create in miniature at Southill. So sometimes you can't always just look at the last 100 years of UK land management. It really helps to have some other inspiring examples from elsewhere, I think.
Yeah, that's nice. Paul, are there parts of rewilding that worry you? Not obviously the Benedict part, because he's sitting next to you, but...
Not at the moment. I can't see anything that worries me. And I think it's the unknown that is the exciting bit. I mean, for me and the boss, it is the unknown. It's that something different. And that's why we stopped the conventional shooting, because we would shoot 200 birds a day. He would ask me which drives we're going to do, what is the bag? And I would say, we're doing X number of drives, the bag will be 200. The bag was 200. It's too predictable. And what he likes, and it's coming again, I think, from this African sort of background feel, is the unpredictable. And it's exciting. It's something different. But just in 2 years, the shooting has improved on Southill. We're putting more water in, and our species days have included more species. So at the moment, there is no negative.
Your guns, who would normally go to a driven day, perhaps, are they getting the same out of a walked-up day at your place as they would at a Devon pheasant shoot?
No, of course not. I mean, but the guests that we have know what to expect. It's all the same mindset. 2 stories. Last season, Mr. Whitbread went to shoot on another estate that stopped rearing and releasing. He came back and said, wonderful day. We shot a pheasant. I said, yeah, and? No, he said, we shot a pheasant. But they had a great day. And the other story, we had a guest on a species day. We lined up on the first drive. We were trying to shoot squirrels. So we walked through the woods, and I said, sir, there's a squirrel up the tree there. Oh, no, don't shoot squirrels. Okay. So next drive was for woodcock. Put him on the edge. It's bound to be a woodcock nip out the side, sir. Well, I don't shoot woodcock.
Okay.
Third drive, ducks. Wild ducks, not tame ducks, wild ducks. Come with me, sir, we'll get you a shot here. Well, don't shoot ducks.
Oh, no.
So at the end of the day, came to me, shook my hand. He said, look, Paul, it's been absolutely fantastic. We've seen so much wildlife. I haven't shot a thing, but it's the best day shooting all season. That's what we're doing. We're not worried about bag numbers, anything like that. It's a good day out, good friends, good meal at the end, and that's what I think shooting should be.
That's lovely to hear. Thank you. Thank you, both of you, for coming to tell that story. It's a very interesting glimpse of a future, certainly, and it's nice to know that gamekeepers still suffer as much as they used to. Paul and Benedict, thank you very much.